بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, my dear respected and viewers, we begin in our class by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we pray that Allah make this majlis, this class in a reason where our sins are forgiven, where our prayers are answered, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open hearts and doors of understanding and bless in our hearts and iman and taqwa. May Allah protect us from all difficulties, trials and tribulations in dunya and akhirah, and bless us in husnul khatima, and gather us our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam yawm al-qiyamah. Ameen ya rabbal alameen. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we, as a continuation to the lesson, and before this, we have entered into speaking about the proof of wahdaniyah, that is the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have not only gone into the evidences, we have gone into the chapter. So when we speak about wahdaniyah, we mentioned that Allah is one in His essence, one in number, one in His attributes, and one in His action, meaning there is nothing like the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is nothing like the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is nothing like the action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This one, and we mentioned tawheedun fi uluhiyatihi, tawheedun fi sifatihi, tawheedun fi af'alihi, meaning He is one in His divinity, there is no other God but Allah. He is one, and nothing is like Him in essence, in entity. Likewise, tawheedun fi sifatihi, that His attributes do not resemble any other attributes other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and tawheedun fi af'alihi, that the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are not like the actions of other than Him. So inshallah ta'ala, today's lesson we enter into the part where the author mentioned the evidences or the proofs on the wahdaniyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let us read again from top. Before that, we have covered, I believe, in our last lesson, that is this basically the introduction to this particular portion, as what I summarized earlier. Tamam. It is clear, inshallah. There is no need anything for me to repeat. All this we have covered when we speak about the attributes of Allah and the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he mentioned the rational proof for Allah's oneness is as follows: if He were not one in His entity, attributes and actions, then nothing of the universe, be it substances or accidents. Last time we mentioned that the universe is made up of substances and accidents. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the author mentioned, if Allah is not one in His entity or His attributes or actions, what will happen? And basically He's saying that if there is other gods other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in that sense, so what will happen is nothing would have existed. Nothing would have existed. The universe that we see today would not have been existed, but the fact that the universe is in existence, so it shows that God is one. And then he mentioned, because he would have been incapable, and if God are many, then they are incapable. So when they are incapable, then they do not have the ability to bring the universe into existence. So all this the evidences coming, inshallah. So this is basically the conclusion. So the author mentioned the conclusion before the evidences. So we will find, for example, later on when he speaks about the proofs or the evidences, and all this, he will go back into this particular conclusion, that if God is more than one, then there will be no capability to bring the creations into existence. And I mentioned in my previous class that this is also based in the verse in the Quran, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about this kind of evidence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهِ لَفَسَدَتَا. Yani if there are many gods other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the heavens and the earth, meaning the universe, the skies and the earth, will be in chaos. Yani it will not be in existence as what we see around us. Further clarifying this, and we said, if there was something similar to him in divinity, it will necessitate that both he and that thing are incapable, whether they are in cooperation, non-cooperation, or had apportioned the act of creation between them. For those who have the book, for those who are following this lesson, and you feel the importance of learning this particular kitab, so to make it easier, you have to write this down in a way that it makes you easy to understand. Because when you look at some of these words, and maybe in English, it is kind of difficult. But what the author is saying, these are the three important aspects, the three important possibilities. Number one, and we call it al-ittifaq. Number two is ikhtilaf. And number three is inqisam. So for those who wants to write down notes, these are the three things you should write: ittifaq, ikhtilaf, inqisam. This is the translation of the three. So when we speak about the evidences on the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we speak about the part of ittifaq, and ittifaq basically it means coming into an agreement. Ikhtilaf, coming into a disagreement, the opposite of ittifaq. And inqisam, it is to divide. It is to divide work. Both are doing, but one is doing one part, one is in one part. This is called inqisam. So let us go into this terminology again. So he said that if there was something similar to him in divinity. So this is just a kind of an example that if a person were to imagine that there are two gods, for example. There are two gods, or three, or four, or five. To make things simple, we go by two, because the moment you understand two, you will understand three, four, and so on. Meaning there's more than one. If the moment a person believes that God is more than one, what will happen? So there are three possibilities. Number one is ittifaq. It is translated here. Just take note. And for those who have the book, ittifaq, it is translated by the translator here is cooperation. You necessitate that they are in cooperation. No, what you call it? Wallahu alam. I think the better word will be in agreement. Will be in agreement. I mentioned why. But ala kulli hal. But what is important and we have to understand. I will give examples inshallah later. Then you will see basically why I mentioned what I mentioned. Ala kulli hal. Just put down there in agreement. They were in agreement, number one. That or disagreement. Maybe you can put on top of non-cooperation. Or had a portion, the act of creation between them. I feel that the third part, what is better for us to say, instead of saying cooperation, for the first part, actually cooperation is the third part. Type. Why? Now the thing, we have the word, let's go back to the Arabic language. Ittifaq, ikhtilaf, and inqisam. Type. What I will do is I will just summarize these examples, basically what the author is going to say, so that at least you have what you call it, some kind of introduction to this particular argument. Type. The author is basically saying this, that if God is more than one, there are three possibilities. What is these three possibilities? The first possibilities is the possibility of ittifaq. Meaning, the first God and the second God. They come into an agreement to bring something into existence, for example. So the first God wants to create a sun, for example. The second God and he agrees. Can you see? This is called ittifaq. The first one and he performs, the second one agrees. طيب, this is the first any example. The second example and is ikhtilaf. The first and he wants and to create, the second does not want. So now it is against. So this is a state of disagreement, ikhtilaf. Whereas al-ittifaq, both of them are in agreement. As for inqisam, both of them do it together. Yani, the first and he wants to create any the sun, the second and he wants to create any a sun. So they come into a common any understanding, and they say, let us do it together. Let us, yani in our words, and we say, just like any person says, let us and do it any together. Type. This is called inqisam. So when you look at the English language, and how do you translate in these terms? When it comes into ittifaq, it will be easier for me personally. We translate as in agreement. Ikhtilaf, no problem, and it is disagreement. Inqisam, then we can say any cooperation. So that is why I personally feel that this kind of translation, that what I mentioned is easier for people to understand, because in the moment when you say cooperation, wallahu alam, any cooperation, and it can also mean inqisam, then the third part. So I feel it is better to be translated that way. But ala kulli hal, as what we mentioned, what is most important is that we understand the meanings. Translations, as what I mentioned many a times, it is just to assist you. Yani in the language that we understand, that we are able to come to an understanding of what the author is saying, from the original Arabic text. So what is important is that we have understood basically what is meant by the author. طيب. So now the author is going to go one by one. What happens in the first possibility of ittifaq? If we say there is ittifaq, what entails from this kind of ittifaq or agreement? And then he goes on to speak about ikhtilaf, and then he goes on to speak about inqisam, and before he speaks about these three categories, he broke everything into two parts, whether it is ittirari or ikhtiyari. Yani meaning, now if a person says that God is more than one, and God is two, for example. So now we also need the question, now are they subjected to do what they are doing, meaning they are forced, or they do by their own choice? Do they have a choice or they don't have a choice? Or if a person says that they do not have a choice, and God have no choice, that they are forced, then clearly this cannot become God. But the moment a person says that they have a choice, then the argument prolongs. Then we go to the three possibilities. Type. So this is just an introduction, inshallah ta'ala. Now when we go back into our kitab. So these are the three possibilities. So I hope for those who are following what I mentioned, that you have a separate note with you. This three is very important, and even if you do not want to put in your notes, underline these three. Do not miss out. This is the main argument here. The what you call it, this the possibilities that he's going to speak about till the end of this part of wahdaniyah. Then he said, each of these categories must either be by choice or by compulsion. That's what I mentioned. So either we say, are they forced or by choice? If they were by compulsion, it would necessitate that both are incapable. If we say that God and you don't have a choice, cannot be God. God cannot be forced. They cannot be forced. So this is a clear cut, then easy for everyone to understand how can God, who is the one who brings everything into existence, and he is overpowered, and he is forced to do something that he does not want. This is impossible. So if both of them are forced, then both are incapable, and thus the existence of the universe will be negated. So the moment a person says or claims that both of the gods or all the gods were forced, then they cannot become God. Because why? Because they do not possess any power, for the fact that they are overpowered by something else, which is wait, I kind of lost any. Okay, we're here. Hold on. Sometimes the cursor and I bring it too fast, so I missed. Okay, we are here. Each of these categories animals either by choice or by compulsion. If they were by compulsion, it would necessitate that both are incapable, and thus the existence of the universe would be negated. So the universe and it cannot be in what you call it, cannot be in existence any because any the gods that are claimed to be gods are not any capable any to become gods. So the existence any of the universe any must be negated, which is absurd. Because why? Because any the universe any is in existence. The universe any is in existence. But to say that there is no God any that bring any the universe into existence, it is what you call it, it is absurd. It go against any the reality what we are experiencing any in real life. If they were both in agreement by choice, okay, now he goes to the first part. Now we say by choice and not force. Okay, now if a person and he says that there are two gods and both and have will, choice, they are not overpowered by anything. So now when we go into the first possibility, that is a possibility of what? Ittifaq. So both gods are in agreement. Need to do something. So what happens? He said if they were both in agreement by choice, meaning by choice and they are not forced, to operate as gods, and both brought an indivisible element, Jawharul Fard, into being, such will entail the divisibility of that which is indivisible, which is impossible because it cannot be divided. Okay, we have to concentrate on this. Okay, before I go on, what is the meaning of Jawharul Fard? We have a terminology here, meaning of a particular thing that is mentioned by our ulama, in Tawheed, in Kalam. They call it Jawharul Fard. Translation in English, it is indivisible element. Indivisible element, something that you cannot divide. Meaning, if you look at a particular thing, and for example, and we look at this cup, and we take the smallest portion of this cup, and we come to this understanding where the smallest portion, smaller than atom, in which that you cannot divide it anymore. The smallest particle of a substance. This is called Jawharul Fard, and it is a substance that cannot be divided further. Now the author is giving an example that if they both of them wants to create this particular substance that is indivisible, Jawharul Fard, that you cannot divide, and it's only one. The smallest substance that cannot be divided. If both of them wants to bring this into existence, only one of them can bring it into existence because it is indivisible. It is indivisible. But now you have two gods. Both of them wants to bring this into existence. So since it is indivisible, both of them cannot bring this particular substance into existence for both of them. Only one of them. Because why? It is something that cannot be divided. So then he mentioned, if they were both in agreement by choice to operate as gods, and both brought an indivisible element, and if you were to imagine that both of them brought an indivisible element into being, such will entail the divisibility of what that is indivisible, and which this is impossible. If we were to say that despite this substance is indivisible, but yet both of these gods can bring it into existence, now we are saying that something that is indivisible can be divisible, and this is impossible. This is This is any impossible. Yani something that is indivisible cannot be divisible any at the same time. Cannot be divisible any at the same time. By claiming any that both gods any brought it into existence, now this is a contradiction. And this is any from the impossibilities. If they both any brought the exact same thing into being, it will imply the acquisition of what is already acquired. This is another thing. Yani, if a person and he says that both of them brought any this substance any into being. Yani, both of them any brought any this substance any into this substance any into being. Then what you call it? Meaning the first one and it brings any the substance any into existence, and the second one agrees any to it. Now this is doing any something that has already been done. This is any doing any something, yani intending any to do something that has already been any been achieved. This is called tahsilul hasil. Tahsilul hasil. So number one, and he speaks any about the impossibilities. Yani to say that both of them any bring this substance any into what you call it into being, and the fact that this substance any is one and it is indivisible, so it is impossible any for two to bring an indivisible any element any into existence. The second any situation any is by saying that the first one any brought and the second one any agrees any to it, then this is what you call it tahsilul hasil. You cannot any create something that has been created. You cannot any create something that has been created, and the same thing that has been created, and you cannot any bring the same thing into existence because it has already been in existence. This is any the meaning any of tahsilul hasil. So this is any the second example. So he said after such will entail the divisibility of that which is indivisible, which is impossible because it cannot be divided. This is the first example. Let's take note. If they both brought the same thing into being, it would imply the acquisition of what is already acquired. Yani the first one, as what I mentioned, the first one brought it into existence, and the second one wants to bring exactly the same thing into existence. So we say that it has already been existence. So this is tahsilul hasil, which is impossible, and impossible to bring the same thing that has been in existence to bring it into existence, and again this is impossible. Tahsilul hasil, to acquire acquisition of what is already acquired. I hope any is clear, inshallah. Ala kulli hal, we do not really have any what you call it, to ask any questions, and if we are in our class, it will be easier. But I hope everything is clear, inshallah. If they both brought the exact same thing into being, it will imply the acquisition of what is already acquired, which is impossible. If one of them brought it into being, now this is another example. If one of them brought it into being, while the other is incapable, yani the first God brings it into existence. The second God, what you call it, agrees to it. Yani agrees to it, and he doesn't want to bring it into existence, but he let it happen. Yani in that sense, he let it. The second God, and he let it happen. Now this is different than tahsilul hasil. That's what we mentioned. Tahsilul hasil, the first God brought it into existence. The second God also wants to bring the same into existence. This is impossible, correct or not? Because he has already been in existence. But this third example is the first God brought it into existence, but the second God let it happen. Any meaning, any in agreement, let it happen without having any intention to bring in any into existence. Any again, different any from the second example. So what will happen? Then it will entail that the second is incapable. Yani how can God let something happen, and he has no ability to cause any effect to the thing that happened in his kingdom. Now it shows that he is incapable. So the incapable one would not be a God, because God is not incapable. It will entail that the God who was able is also not capable. So what is the meaning? What is the meaning? If you look at this statement, I will explain the first part first. So now basically the author is saying, if the first God creates something, and the second God let it happen. So we say second God cannot be God. Because why? He is incapable to prevent something from occurring and in his kingdom, or something else and that brought something into existence, and he has no ability any to do anything. So he cannot be God, the second one. What about any the first? The first one also cannot be God, because why? The first one is also incapable, because why? It has similarities any to the second God. It has similarities any to the second God. If the second God is incapable, the first God is also any incapable, because any they are similar. Because any they are similar any beings. The both are gods any. Both are gods. First one create, second one does not create. Second one cannot be God. First one also cannot be God, because any they are similar. They are similar yani in their what you call it, in their characteristic as God. So it will not be God, because God is not incapable. It will also entail that the God who was able, yani the first one, is not a God, because it has already been assumed that he is like the other, because they are similar. And the one who is like something that is incapable is also incapable. Yani when we say the second God is incapable, the first God is also incapable, because any they are the same. The same, and in a sense any they are similar. Yani both are seen any as gods. If both are incapable, then neither of two any is a God. Then both of them any cannot be God. If it is clear that both are incapable of bringing an indivisible element into being, it follows that they are incapable of bringing all other contingents any into being any as well. Yani if they do not have any the ability to bring Jawharul Fard any into being, as what we mentioned, if they are two gods, then what you call it, it is impossible any to bring something together. Because why? It is an indivisible any element, or the first one and he creates and the second one wants to create the same one. This is tahsilul hasil. Or the first one and he brought it into existence, second one do not do anything. Now it shows any that the second one and is incapable. When the second one is incapable, the first one is also incapable, because any they are similar. So all this discussion and all this any argument and the difference between one contingent possibility and another, meaning if they do not have the ability to bring any one mumkin into existence, now what is any the difference any between other mumkin? Likewise, any we say they do not have the capability any to bring other mumkin any into being any also, because any mumkin are the same in its if they differ with each other. In such instance as one of them wanted to move a body in a particular point in time, and the other wanted to keep it at rest at the same time, neither of their will could be fulfilled, because that would be a gathering between two contraries. Okay, simple example. Look at this cup, yani. Type, and we say that everything is either in motion or stationary. Everything is motion is stationary. So for example, when you look at this cup, it is impossible to say that this cup is moving and not moving at the same time. This is a gathering of two contraries. An example of gathering of two contraries is to say that this particular body, and we say this body, this particular thing, and that's what we mentioned. Yani to say that something is moving and not moving at the same time, and this is impossible, and this cannot happen. This cannot happen. So if the two wills, meaning the will of the first God and the will of the second God. The second God wants to do something. The first God wants to do something. The second one wants to do the opposite. So this can entail a gathering of two contraries. Like the example as what the author mentioned. The first wants to move any substance. The second one wants to keep it stationary. So they are a gathering. This is a gathering of two contraries, and this is impossible to take place. Impossible to take place. So he said, if they differ with each other in such instance as one of them wanted to move a body in a particular point in time, and the other wanted to keep it in rest at the same time, neither of their wills could be fulfilled, because that would be a gathering of two contraries, so it cannot happen. It is invalid for neither of their wills to be fulfilled, because that would entail the raising of two contraries, even though a body can accept both. Meaning, a body can accept both, and this cup can accept movement, can be still. Yes, but not at the same time. Not at the same time. To say at the same time, it is impossible. So this is why the author mentioned, even though body and he can accept both. Naam, but not any at the same time. It is invalid for one of them to carry out his will without the other, because the incapability of one is a proof for the incapability of the other. So the first God is unable to move the body. The second God is incapable also to make it at motion, because we say this is a gathering of two contraries. So what happened? Both of them are incapable. Both of them are incapable. The first is incapable to move it. The second is incapable to make it stationary. So it is invalid for them to carry out his will without the other, because the incapability of one is a proof for the incapability of the other, as he is like the other. So if you say that the first God is incapable, now the second God is also incapable. If they are separated, he says here, if they separated, went their own way, as to speak, by choice, it will entail that both are incapable of affecting that which is with the other, because the condition of a God is that his omnipotence must be generally linked with all contingently possible things. From this rational proof, you come to know that there is only one God. This is a clear-cut, unequivocal proof in support of that. Okay, now we go on to the third part. What is the third part? The third part is that they combine. So when we speak about they differ, the difference, we say that there will be a gathering of two contraries. The first wants to create, for example, the first one wants to create a sun. The second one does not want to create a sun. So we cannot be saying that something, the sun is in existence and not existence at the same time. So this cannot happen. So it shows the incapability of both. The incapability of both. Type. This is when they what you call it? When they in a state of difference. Type. What about if they do it together? What about if they do it together? Type. Imagine this cup. God number one and God number two wants to create a cup, for example, and they want to do it together. They want to do it together. So the first God creates half of this cup. The second God creates the other half. And what happens now? Now the power of the first God is linked to only half of the cup, and the power of the second God is only linked to another half of the cup. So now the author is saying, so power, it must encompass all possible things, but now it is only encompassing part of it, and another part is done by something else. So this shows that both cannot become God. It shows both cannot become God, because something happens in existence which is not linked to their omnipotence and not linked to their power. And this is impossible for godly attributes, because the reality of the power of God, it must encompass every possibilities. It must encompass every possible things. So we cannot be saying that God is only powerful to do this particular thing, but he has no effect on other things. This is impossible. This is impossible. It shows that he is incapable of something in existence to cause any effect to it. So if he is incapable, then he cannot become God. So both cannot become God. Another reason also because they are helping one another. They are in need of one another, because one is creating half, another one is creating the other half. So the first one is in need of the second one, and the second one is in need of the first one. And God cannot take any assistance from from others. So if God is in need any of help, then he cannot become God. So these are the three possibilities we have. Number one is both of them are in agreement. Number two, both of them differ. And number three, both of them work together. Yani both of them are together. And all these are the possibilities, and all of this shows that God is only one. Because God if two or more, then all these possibilities comes in. So inshallah ta'ala, this is our lesson for today. So we have covered all the three parts of the possibilities when you speak about the proofs of the oneness of Allah. So inshallah ta'ala, next week we will continue on so many of the things where the author going to speak again about kasb, the action of the servant. So I hope that it is clear inshallah ta'ala. If there is no questions, and I believe we will stop here. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.